The time now tonight is the istishhad night, and the time is it's over 9 o'clock, inshallah. And tomorrow is a weekend, so we have a space tonight. So that's why we took a little long. So inshallah, now for Dr. Hasnain, a speech. Sallallahu ala Muhammadin wa ala Muhammad. وآل محمد وعجل فرجه. روح.
صل على
محمد.
صل على محمد وآل محمد. أرواح المؤمنين المؤمنات سورة المباركة الفاتحة. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Mu'mineen, before I begin, I'm duty bound to acknowledge my deep appreciation and thanks to the entire community here to have given me the privilege of being with you all for the last 10 days. And I've truly felt humbled by the hospitality, by the courtesy of each and every one of you as I have interacted with you here in the lobby there, outside in the car park, and as some of you have taken the time to accord me hospitality. I truly thank you all for that. I really want to express my particular thanks to Brother Fatih. I'm truly honored to know somebody who is so soft and yet so firm. He handles the programs, in the traditional way. Somebody like that in the African Jamaats we had, he would be called the Mukhi. And the Mukhi actually comes from the word Mukhtar, the leader. So truly, he is the floor leader here. Thank you, Brother Fatih. I appreciate your humility. I appreciate your courtesy and the way you have been able to manage the programs. We truly appreciate it. To my two learned friends, Haj Adnan, where is he? I don't see him. He's outside. And of course, Abu Salam. My weak Arabic, despite my weak Arabic, I was able to learn so many significant things from the lectures. This community is blessed to have such humble scholars and such articulate scholars amongst you, and we hope and pray that Allah gives us tawfiq to continue to benefit from the services. Thank you, Haj Adnan and Abu Salam. Of course, our young budding speaker, Emil, you have a great future ahead of you in Tabligh. Allah has blessed you with a special gift. Make sure you use that gift for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that inshallah we will see you as a budding speaker going around internationally talking about Imam Hussain alayhi salam and about the Blessed Prophet. To Dr. Riaz, I say, and his family, I say thank you very much for the hospitality. He took time off his busy schedule to make sure that I was not sitting alone in my hotel room. And thank you once again. I did not know Riaz before I came here. I had heard about him. When I live, amongst many friends that I live a very dear friend in Buffalo. Thank you very much. Dr. Tanveer, I met you first time in Buffalo at the airport, and it really, your courtesy touched me. Thank you very much. And of course, we have Zain is probably in the media room, making sure that the videos are properly done, uploading them, streaming them, and I've had a lot of comments from outside in terms of how fast everything was loaded. Wonderful work. We need young men like Zain and others. And I again thank Zain, for his efforts. Thank you very much. To Dr. Jaffrey, I say, for your phenomenal leadership and your passion. And we pray for the tawfiqat, Dr. Jaffrey. And when you walk, and I noticed this specifically, that when Dr. Jaffrey is walking, he's walking in a very profound sense to say how much of responsibilities he's shouldering. And we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He gives you tawfiq to continue to shoulder responsibilities and also bring the community together, because this truly is a small community and we all need to be together, as Dr. Fuad said so rightly. I don't know whether I should be thanking Dr. Fuad, but I should particularly thank him for hiding my secrets, if for nothing else. Truly, we grew up together, and it's been a pleasure to have known him and his family. And just to give you a small historical anecdote, Dr. Fuad happens to be the descendant. He is a great, 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 great grandson of Haji Devji Jamal, the man who goes to Karbala, the man who goes to Ayatollah Mazandarani, brings back Mullah Qadar Hussain Karbalai, so that my ancestors and his ancestors, who used to be Ismailis and Hindus before that, were actually converted to the great faith of Shia Ethnashi. And we can never forget the debt of gratitude to his ancestor and to his family. Dr. Fuad, to you and to your family, I thank you very much for your hospitality, and also a promise that you elicited from me. I'm so glad that I kept that promise, and I'm truly blessed once again, Mominin, to be here with you all. And I have a particular message for my young friends. As Dr. Fuad said, and inshallah I will continue because the subject is very similar, that home is not where our grandparents were born, as he said. Home is when our grandchildren are going to grow up. Our grandchildren are going to be your children, young men and women sitting here. And it is up to you to nurture the next generation, so that you have to imbibe the spirit of the veterans, Dr. Jaffrey, Dr. Fuad, and everybody else who is here, to actually imbibe that spirit of building institutions. You have to come forward and say, this is my center, this is my institution, and I'm going to engage because I am now creating a future for my children and their children, and this is the baton that now needs to be passed on to the generation of young men and women who are sitting here. They may be from any part of the world. This is a center, and this is a place where we have made our home. A lot of us still have not burned some of the bridges. The sooner, and I say this with great profundity. The sooner we are able to burn those bridges and say, we are here, this is our home, and our grandchildren are going to grow up here, the sooner we will get settled here in more ways than one. And the beginning, a community feels that it is settled when it builds a masjid. And truly, it is a blessing, a privilege to have a masjid, a building of this nature here in Buffalo, where many communities across the world that I have traveled do not have anywhere near such beautiful facilities. We thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for having given us the blessing and the privilege. If I missed anybody in thanking, please forgive me. I try to remember everybody. And once again, to all of you, thank you very much. Yes, of course, our friends, I have not been able to meet them personally, but I would like to thank them also for the beautiful renditions, because for us from this Indian subcontinent, without hearing the Azaa of Al-Hussein, without hearing the Marsha and the Nawhaz, no Muharram can ever be complete. So thank you very much for the recitations. Jazakallah khair. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله والحمد لله الذي جعلني من أمتي سيد المرسلين خاتم النبيين طه وياسين أحمد محمود أبو القاسم محمد ومن المحبين عترة الطاهرين لعنة الدائمين من الآن إلى يوم الدين على أعدائهم أما بعد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه المجيد وفرقانه الحميد وقوله الحق بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هل ننبئكم بالأكثرين أعمالا الذين ضل سعيهم في الحياة الدنيا وهم يحسبون أنهم يحسنون صنعا صلوات. Mu'mineen, we began this series of lectures talking about faith and deeds. And tonight, I would like to conclude this session on the subject of a life well lived ends in a good death. This is the span. All of us are going to go in that direction. It is what we do with the time that we have on this planet. It is that span of time. As I say, Jab Ahmad Mursal na rahe, to kaun rahega? If the Prophet went that same way, who are we to stay behind? Truly, this is a life well lived if we soar with the spirit of Amal Saleh and the idea of faith, of Iman. These are the two wings that we have been talking about. And the idea of moving with Imam Hussein alayhi salam is that while we must understand history, we need to know, and I talked about this a few days ago, about the three levels of history being the personalities, the event, and the idea behind, and the lessons that we learn. I say that let us not just move with Hussein in history, let us move with him in reality, revolution, and change, because otherwise the poet, great poet, Najm Afandi, in the Urdu language says, and that's a translation, to say, Gehware be-shir pe roye to bahut, Gehware be-shir pe roye to bahut, Gehware zindagi mein aankhein na khuli. That upon the crib of Ali Asgar, our eyes have flowed tears. But when it comes to the crib of life, where we move, maybe we have not even opened our eyes. And this is that journey that we take. We also talked about the value of one tear that comes in the azar of Al-Hussein. That if one tear in us is going to create within us just a little valor or a little glow of his bravery and valor, that it creates a particle of his free nature, that he was beholden to none but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that it just gives us one small particle of the faith Imam Hussain alayhi salam and his companions had, or one small particle of his piety and a small spark of his understanding of Tawheed, then that tear would have infinite value. Meaning that tear is a catalyst in bringing into us the very values that were brought to us by the Holy Prophet of Islam sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So, Mu'mineen, what is the relevance of Karbala today? That whoever is with Hussein, and we are all with Al-Hussein today, and we'll continue inshallah until the day we die, cannot pledge allegiance to an oppressor, nor can such a person fight alongside an oppressor, nor can excuse an oppressor or justify his oppression. Therefore, let us shorten our tears when they're only tears of history, Mu'mineen, and let them flow much more when they're the tears for the oppressed of this world. We see so much oppression. We see so much zulm that is happening on this planet. If our tears are only ritual tears for Hussein, then we will not feel for those who are oppressed. But if our tears are the tears of reality and of present today, then we will truly feel those tears, because now we feel with Hussein. And tonight is that night. Tonight is that night when the last night, as we hear in the Maktal literature, that there were two camps. There were two camps in Karbala. There was one camp which wanted to earn dunya. There was one camp which wanted to please its master. There was one camp which wanted the land of Rai, which was promised to the army of Yazid, that you will get the land of Rai. And there was another camp which was buzzing with the zikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as if there were bees buzzing on that night. And Imam alayhi salam was telling his companions that they are after my blood. You are free to go. You are free to go. And no one left. No one who was in that tent on the night of Ashur, history records that nobody left. This was a test of those companions of Imam Hussain alayhi salam. Mu'mineen, today we are the contemporaries and the companions of Imam Zamana Ajjalallahu Faraja Ta'ala. And for us, as Imam Jafar as-Sadiq al-Islam spoke, to say, Kullu yawmin Ashura, Kullu ardhin Karbala, that every day is Ashura and every land is Karbala. Therefore, our responsibility is to be the rightful companions and to claim to be the companions. Remember, man goes to Imam Jafar as-Sadiq al-Islam and said, we are your Shia. And Imam said, don't say that lest you may be raised amongst the liars, because for our Shia, their heart is clear of deceit and malice. And there are many other definitions he gave. So this is who we are, to try and cleanse ourselves. Because the entire revolution of Karbala was not merely a tragedy of 72 people being killed. That is such an important part of our history. But Imam says, I am a reformer. When he leaves Medina, he says, I am a reformer. Our society has become corrupt, and the ummah of my grandfather has become degenerate. I have risen up to carry out reform and that I am a reformer. That is the spirit of Karbala. And that is why the message that reaches us, this is a Husseini University. Thank you to Bibi Zainab Salamullahi Alayha, who actually began the concept and the idea of Aza of Hussein right in the house of the enemy. Because every revolution needs to have blood, which the Shuhada gave, and every revolution also needs to have a message that needs to be transmitted. And it was Bibi Zainab Salamullahi Alayha, as she went through the courts of Yazid, in Kufa and in Damascus, in Sham, and she preached, and this was the role of women in continuing with the message of Karbala, of Al-Hussein. Mu'mineen, we owe it. We owe it to that message. We owe it to that message to continue to put forth. We need to set our worldly differences aside. The idea is that we are a community which has been called Ummat Wasata, a nation most balanced. The Quran talks about it. And this is Ummat Wasata. This is the Ummah of the Prophet of Islam. This is the Ummah that follows his progeny. This is an Ummah that mourns Hussein. It must be an Ummah that must become part of not others changing us, but it must become a community which becomes agents of change in any society that they do. This is our call, and this is our responsibility. So, what do we do at a personal level? The idea for a life well lived is to encourage and associate with others who are doing good and ignore their imperfections. None of us is masoom. All of us are fallible. We make mistakes. The idea is that we get together, help each other in doing good. وَتَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْبِرِّ وَالتَّقْوَى وَلَا تَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْإِثْمِ وَالْعُدْوَانِ. That cooperate with each other in bir and in taqwa, in goodness and in piety, and not in aggression and sin. So this is what we do, that loving and hating. We love and hate for Allah, and not for any parochial reasons, not for any ethnic reasons. So and so doesn't look like me, so and so doesn't talk like me, therefore I cannot be their friend, or that I cannot actually deal with them. These are the things that need to be cleared of our minds, because everything and anything that we do is for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this is how we can make our world a better place, by making those contributions. Salawat. At a community level, when we talk about a life well lived, it is standing up for justice, for the rights of the persecuted people of the world, discharging responsibilities before demanding my rights. I have responsibilities, mu'mineen, first to discharge, before I can expect the lights to be on here in this Imam Barga, in this center. My rights of having this light on actually is preceded by my responsibility of ensuring that there are sufficient resources available for these lights to be on. The responsibilities must come first. This is the kind of spirit that we need to show, not the spirit that was shown by the people of Kufa. This is what we learn. Haqiqat-e abadi hai maqam-e shabbiri. Haqiqat-e abadi hai maqam-e shabbiri. Badalte rehte andaz o Kufi o Shami. This change, the spirit as shown by the people of the rulers of Kufa, always continues to change. But it is the message of Al-Hussein that remains consistent. So let us not be like the Kufis. Do you know that the Kufis realized what was happening in Karbala? They actually realized the tragedy that was unfolding. Aza actually passed through them. The stories of Karbala passed through them. This was delivered, and yet there was no change in them. Are we the same kind of people where Azaf al-Hussein is going through us, that we are understanding it, we are hearing about it, but still there is no change, like there was no change in the people of Kufa? We are not the people of Kufa at that time. And this is our legacy, mu'mineen, that this is what we mean by living for others. Hukukul ibad is important. Hukukullah is important. And when we say that our lives are part of a larger story, how do we contribute to it? And I take the support from the words of Amirul Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam when he said that socialize with people in such a way that when you die, they mourn you, and when you live, they desire your company. This is how we live in a society. This is how we present ourselves. We just heard that it was not. It was not by the sword that Islam was spread. I say no, Islam was spread by the sword, but it was not an iron sword. It was a sword of akhlaq through which the Blessed Prophet cut through the cheese of that society, and through his own actions in akhlaq, he was able to change. This is how he lived in this society. And this is what Imam Ali alayhi salam is telling us. Mu'mineen, these are direct lessons for us. There are no big philosophies. So we need to fully utilize the opportunity that life offers. Remember, 86,400 seconds that we have in a day must be invested because there is no balance left. And that 86,400 seconds gone on a day is gone. Every day we live is a day further from birth. Every breath we take is a breath closer to death. Some of us think we may be in departure lounge. We don't know who is going to go when. But we know that we are going to go. And every breath that we take is a step towards death. And therefore the Blessed Prophet of Islam sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, live as you please, but you will die someday. Love what you may, but someday you will be separated. You will be separated from your mal, from your assets. You will be separated from your al, your awlad, your children. You will be separated from this world. You will be separated from everyone else. It is your life, and your life only, in the way that you have lived, and the amal that you have are going to come with you in the grave. And this can never be forgotten by us. But sometimes in this day and age, and I talked about shaitan and his particular way of keeping us so busy that we break that connection with Allah and the Blessed Prophet, that we seem to be totally occupied and distracted to do anything. We have what they call analysis paralysis. What do I do? Do I do this or not? Shall I do this? And no action takes place. Well, it is said that all that is necessary for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. A few days ago, I was talking philosophy. That evil is not an essence. Evil does not exist per se. Good exists. Evil is the absence of good. Good is the essence. Evil does not have existence. Therefore, all that is necessary for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. Something is happening on the street. Something is happening in your city. Something bad is happening. If nobody stands up for it, there will be corruption in the entire city. So if someone stands up for it, and if there is a wave that moves forward, then things change. We just see it happen in our own time right now last week. Mr. Harper in Canada today is probably wearing that niqab himself and going so that he is not recognized. The Muslims of Canada stood up and they have made a difference. They have made a difference to say we cannot have a bigot like Harper to actually come and be elected. People took up upon themselves, Muslims and non-Muslims, good people took up upon themselves to say we cannot elect such people, and he was totally defeated, and the story is different today. This is the meaning of saying that if we don't stand up for what we believe in, we cannot afford to be mu'minin selfish, uncaring or indifferent. It's not that it's not going to come back to me. It's like a boomerang. If I did not do something about something wrong that's happening in a society, sooner or later, it may come back to me, to my children, to my grandchildren. The actions that we may take today may have its impetus many, many years later, decades later. But if I had done something about it today, maybe there would have been a change. We cannot. Because if we are not, as I say, part of the solution by our apathy, we could be the part of the problem itself. And this is the message. Yes, Mominin, I apologize if some of you felt that the delivery is non-traditional. But if these messages are not going to be given to the community from this pulpit of Al-Hussein, then when are we going to give these messages? We can praise the Aimma alayhi salam all we can, and we can do their fazail all we want, and we should. There are times for it. But along with the fazail of Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, along with what Zulfikar did, do we actually consider what was bigger than that Zulfikar that Imam Ali alayhi salam was able to offer us? He was able to offer us a level of intellect, a level of thinking, and a way forward. This is the Imam that we are following. Zulfikar had its place in those times. Today, the Zulfikar of the mind needs to work because the world has moved on from using metal swords. It has to use the sword of intellect to make a difference, to have a just society. So, please do not wait, Mu'mineen. Do not wait until next Muharram to do something about it. You know why NASA is successful? Do you know why NASA was able to send a man to the moon? It's not because Kennedy said so, but NASA has a slogan. It says, do it right now. That is the slogan which put man on the moon. And do whatever you can, even if it may seem little. We have to have action. In the name of Al-Hussein, I appeal to say that we can't sit. The Muslim community, especially in North America, with everything that we are facing, cannot sit still. Cannot just have within our Imam Barghazi majalis and that we will cry and lament upon Imam Hussein alayhi salam without interacting with the wider society. We cannot be in our four walls. We cannot be just cocoon within ourselves. I say this at the risk of repetition. You know, every action each person takes, there will be a difference. At the risk of repetition, young man was throwing starfish back which had come on the beach. They were drying. They were dying. And there were thousands upon thousands of starfish. And an old man was watching. As Dr. Fuad says, someone in the departure lounge. He was waiting in the departure lounge, watching the young man actively picking up one starfish, throwing it back into the water. And he goes to the young man and said, young man, why are you wasting your time? There are thousands upon thousands of starfish on the beach which are dying. What difference is it going to make? And the young man picks up one starfish, throws it back into the water, and says, it made a difference to that one. Made a difference to that one. When Namrud did what he wanted to do with Nabi Ibrahim and the fire was raging, we are told in the books of history that there was a small lizard who tried to put drops of water upon the fire. And that lizard was told the same thing, to say, what difference does it make? The fire of Namrud is raging. What difference is it going to make? And the lizard says, on the day of judgment, I can go to my Lord and say, Ya Allah, I tried. I did my best. And this needs to be the spirit. Do not consider any act that you can do. The Blessed Prophet said, removing a stone in the path of the people are going, that's charity. Giving a smile to somebody is charity. Charity doesn't only mean money. The idea is, let us engage in the society that we have, because, we have to be the best that we can. And this, indeed, is the entire circle that we've come back to in terms of those who have faith and who do righteous deeds. So, to recap, and I know that it is a long night, but it is a Friday night. This is the last night where those tents were awake all night. I may take a few more minutes. I promise not to. but just in case, that a life well lived requires, number one, moral consistency. And I'll go into each of these in detail. It needs compassion. It needs courage to be unique. It means meaningful relationships. It means commitment to excellence. And it means an attitude of gratitude. This is what it is. What is moral consistency? It's simply about being clear, about being authentic, about being honest and not being a hypocrite. Say what you mean and mean what you say. In society, you will be respected. The Blessed Prophet did not make three different statements. He made one statement. People knew that this is a statement coming from him. It's not going to change. He means what he says, and he says what he means. Who you are speaks more loudly than everything that you could say. You could say everything. You could go on LinkedIn and put anything about yourself on LinkedIn. The best of profiles that you may have. That means nothing. People will judge you as to who you are because they will see that and people are very clever. Do not underestimate the intellect of the people. They know that if you walk the talk, you will be aligned with your core values. If you are consistent in thought, word, and deed, then of course you will be recognized for who you are. And then you need compassion. Remember, we talked about adopting the akhlaq of Allah. He is both Rahman and Rahim. Rahman is somebody who gives you benefit, who actually helps you and gives you benefit, whether you are their friend, whether they believe in Allah or not. Rahim is an attribute where you have a particular grace for those who are near to you. The idea is to have compassion. This is the other thing, that be like the sun, which gives away all it has to the plants and trees, and in return the plants and trees provide sustenance and shade to others. It is a cyclical thing. And we repeated this to say, Imam Ali said, socialize with people in such a way that when you die, they mourn for you, and when you live, they desire your company. And then be unique. It takes courage. You are a human being. Do you know the thumbprint that I have? There is no matching thumbprint that I have on this planet. It is unique. And I, as a human being, is as unique as my thumbprint. You be unique. It takes courage to be unique. Do not walk the path of least resistance. My young friends, there's a lot of peer pressure. There'll be a lot of peer pressure to say this is how things are done, or everybody else does this. Be unique, be yourself. Do not walk the path of least resistance to say, well, this is the easiest because everybody else is doing it. If you feel within you, through that critical thinking, to say that I am a Muslim, I am a good Muslim, that the school of Ahlul Bayt has taught me certain attributes without feeling superior, I will walk my path because I am a person with a mission, which is what I learned from Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. Salawat. Mu'mineen, no greatness was ever achieved by people being afraid of taking the road less traveled. In fact, every invention, every creative thing has happened because people were thinking out of the box. As I said before, recognize the box that you're in. We are all in some kind of a box. Recognize the box that you're in, try and get out of that box. Because no creativity can come if you do what everybody else is doing. Salawat. Also, do what is not easy, but do what is right. This is being unique, being yourself. We talked about self-esteem and self-worth. This is a build-up of all the previous lectures that we've done. We talked about self-esteem and self-worth. Self-esteem is what somebody else thinks of you. Self-worth is what you think is within you, and you will not be able to, you won't be afraid to do what is easy. You will do what is right if you have your self-worth. If it is self-esteem, if you're thinking about others, they may give you an easy passage, you may do something easy. And then finally, know yourself, improve yourself, and be yourself. Unless you know who you are, remember, at the end of the day, you are the one who has to live most with yourself. That doesn't mean that you practice selfishness. The idea is be yourself. Have the confidence of the self-worth that you have been given. Commit yourself to excellence. Nobody is perfect. Each one of us, mu'minin, is what they call work in progress. We are evolving. I am 65 years old. I am still evolving. I haven't evolved. Each one of us is work in progress. But we need to commit ourselves to excellence in everything that we do. Now, please understand the difference between excellence and perfection. Excellence is not a quest for perfection. Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is perfect. There is no such thing as perfection, but you must strive for excellence in everything that you do. Mu'minin, we must be proud of who we are. We must be disciplined for the kind of people that we are. Alhamdulillah, it doesn't happen here. I have been to other centers where there is chaos while the thing is going on. And this is a center where we had people who had PhDs and MDs and masters and everybody. Nobody has a degree less than a master's. And I would see the chaos that would ensue. And then one day I was speaking and I said, finally, I have figured it out. And they said, what? I said, it's in the shoes. It's in the shoes. Because out there in the corporate world, we have the excellence in every way. We keep our time. We keep quiet when somebody is speaking. We are courteous when things are happening. Out there in the corporate world, we learn that. The minute we take our shoes off out there and come inside, our character changes because nothing else has changed. I brought myself in as I was. I'm wearing the same cloth. So I told them, I think it must be in the shoes because the only thing that we came here without is our shoes. Mu'min, why is it that our characters change? Why is it that in the corporate world we are the best of people? But when it comes to running our organizations, when it comes to being a community, then why is it that we have become lax, mu'minin? This is a pride, this must be a pride that we have as a community to actually show that we truly are that ummat-e wasata. Let's not be afraid of mistakes. There is nothing wrong with making an error as long as you learn from the errors and your setbacks. It's a learning exercise. Your past serves as a lesson to you that you get better and wiser with every day. Do you know an error doesn't become a mistake unless you refuse to correct it? If you make an error, don't correct it, that's when it becomes a mistake. So there's a difference between an error and a mistake. If you make an error, you have an opportunity to correct it. We are also told that if you sin, if you make an error in the hukukullah or in disobeying Allah, we are told that the angel is not going to write down the account until the evening in the hope that Allah is giving you an opportunity to correct that error and not make a mistake. So one has that opportunity. And finally, we say leave a legacy. Leave a legacy when you go. This is a life well lived. Maulana Rum said so beautifully that after our death, do not search for us in the tombs or the graveyards of the world, but search for us in the hearts of people that we have inspired. When you have, particularly, how many of you remember the teacher who made the biggest impact on you and inspired you to do something? You will always remember that teacher who was there. This is the meaning that you don't search the teacher in a graveyard. You search him in your heart because you remember that madrasa teacher, your Quran teacher, your physics teacher, whoever that may be, somebody who made a difference to you. This is what we need to do, that when we work, build a legacy by adding deep value in every encounter that you have with anyone. Mu'minin, this is an inspiring message for us, that when I leave, a life which is lived well would end in a good death. When I have left this world a better place than when I came to it. It could be the smallest thing. But if I am able to do that, this is what we need to do. The two most important places is community and family. And I'll go very quickly on this because time is running out. The two most important aspects of our faith are that community and family, and particularly the role of the mother is considered to be one of the most tenets which underpins our faith. It is not in vain that it was said that Jannah is at the feet of the mothers. And somebody goes to the Blessed Prophet and to say, who should I respect? He said, your mother. And then he said, your mother. And then he said, your mother. And then he said, your father. This is the value of motherhood. When we look at the role of women in Karbala, they are depicted as warriors fighting against injustice. This is what we are honoring here, sitting in this morning assembly, where we pay our condolences to the Lady of Light, Bibi Fatima Zahra Salamullahi Alayha. A message. Mu'mineen, a message for women to fight against oppression and to work for justice. That they are able to personify and the quality and the attributes that Bibi Zainab Salamullahi Alayha and the other ladies in Karbala depict through their sabr, through their patience, and then through their bravery as they go through the trials and tribulations. So, Mu'mineen, when it comes to talking about women from the pulpit, sadly, all that is talked about is a piece of cloth on their head, which is the hijab. This is important. But is that all that there is to it when we talk about women from these pulpits? The idea of hijab, yes, hijab was important. The snatch hijab of Bibi Zainab was a critical thing to understand. But bigger than that is, what was the role Bibi Zainab played in terms of establishing the fight for justice, where she goes in Kufa, in Sham, and makes those speeches where people say, is this Zainab speaking or is this Ali speaking? This is the legacy. So empowering women, the Azhar in fact enables for the modern woman to identify with Bibi Zainab. Bibi Fatima Salamullahi Alayha became a symbol of courage in the court of the Caliph. Fadak was not a matter of personal property that she was fighting for. For Fadak she was fighting for a right, and she was demonstrating that as a woman she has right to inherit, and that was the point that she was establishing. These are the nuances of our history, that she demonstrated a defiance of the limitations which were put upon her by the Arab culture at that time, that she goes to the court of the Khalifa and demands her right. These are the lessons that we have, that we transcend gender expectations and regulations. There are many cultural things where this patriarchal society subjugates women. Even sometimes the Quranic interpretations which have been made by men seem to be rather lopsided, I dare say. This is when the great ulama do this, they do it in a fair way. But Quran is also being used by the patriarchal society to subjugate women. And when that is happening in a society, it is for the men also to stand up for their rights, but also for the women not to be docile and say, well, this is how it is, this is how our culture is. Because, you know, strong women, women who understand their faith, are indispensable for building the next generation. A believing and an educated mother has the best opportunity to imbibe her children with faith and moral values. It is the mother who has the greatest impact. And if we deny that empowerment of women, we're denying the empowerment of our entire society. Because it is she who will raise children with courage, with truthfulness, with love and kindness, faith and self-confidence. That does not mean that the fathers are scot-free to do whatever, because we tend to view as fathers in our traditional societies in material terms. We work long hours for the family, and the father says, I have to see to it that my children are well fed, obtain a good education, are given a good start in life. How do I do that? By just pushing dollar bills, by just sending them to the best schools and paying the fees. Mu'mineen, there's far more to the role of the father than being a financial protector. We have a tremendous opportunity of showing leadership in the home, to say that the pedestal of leadership in the home, the role model for the child. Leadership does not imply the right to be overbearing. Leadership means that you show by example what kind of a father you are, so that the child sees you for who you are and then is developed. It's no point saying, son, don't smoke when you are smoking 20 cigarettes a day yourself. It doesn't work. The children are too clever to see through that if the father does not pray on time, you cannot expect the son to pray on time or the daughter to pray on time. If we do not give enough importance to hukukul ibad, that we do not go out and do charity, the son is not going to do it, or the daughter is not going to do it, because they see the role model. When you have families who are attached to the centers, who will come and volunteer for the centers, when they see their parents volunteering for the centers, the children will also join in, because they have seen their fathers. This is how we have all developed. I used to see my elders working as volunteers. It gave me the impetus to go and do some work for the mosque, because I saw them. I did not have an idea at that time what I was doing, but because I saw them doing it, I emulated them. And this truly is the secret of creating a family and a society. Amirul Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib al-Islam says, raise your children differently. We've heard this often enough. How many of us practice? Raise your children differently from the way you were raised, for they are going to live in a different time. Look at the foresight of Mawla. Today, it is not change that bothers people. It is the rate at which change is changing. Can we understand this? You know, Alvin Toffler, a futurist, talked about the power shock, and he talked about the power shift. And he said that change is going to be such. 30 years ago, he said that just as from the feudal societies, wealth actually shifted to machines, meaning the industrialists, the industrial society, that people who possess machines were now becoming wealthy. 30 years ago, he said, people who possess information will become wealthy. He had not even heard the name Google. He had not heard the name Microsoft or Apple or whatever. The whole idea is he foresaw. The idea is times change, and we also have to change with it. The behaviors have to change. The essence doesn't change. The principle of La ilaha illallah does not change. But the manner in which we deliver the message changes. And this is something that we need to prepare the future generations so that they will not be out of tune with the time and place. Shaykh Ustad Mutahari says this beautifully. He says each generation is responsible for the guidance of the preceding generation. And then he says we must completely remove the thought from our heads that this new generation must be guided by following the methods that were used by previous generations. Meaning, as times change, we need to raise our children differently. There are different modalities as the society works. And you know, he also says, Shaykh Ustad Mutahari says, that you don't have to worry about 6 generations. All you do is, you worry about the next generation. If you have truly prepared the next generation which is imbibed in their faith, then that generation will be able to nurture the next generation. And that generation will nurture the next generation. Otherwise what happens is this man goes to the soothsayer, to the person who tells his futures, comes back, is in a very bad mood. So his wife is asking him to say, why are you in a bad mood? So he said, well, I want to see this Joshi, the soothsayer, and what he told me was that 6 generations are going to enjoy the wealth that you have made. You have so much wealth, and you will make so much wealth in your life that 6 generations will have to do nothing. They'll be able to survive on your wealth. So I said, you should be happy. He said, no, I'm not. The wife said, why are you not happy? He said, I am worried about the 7th generation. Ayatollah Mutari says, you don't have to worry about 7 generations. Next generation, each one of us, this is a message to the young people as I began, to say that you will be raising Muslim Americans in this country in the days to come, long after some of us are gone. It is now up to you. The mental is up to you. Our generation has passed the best way it could. We were first generation immigrants here. Some of them hardly could speak the language when we came here. We learned, we did all kinds of jobs to try and see that my son or my daughter gets the best education, that they go, and we invested everything that we had into that mominin. That is a generation of Muslims that is growing up today in this era. We have done our bit, those in our 60s and 70s. We have done our bit. I am challenging my young friends here. Whatever the ethnic background may be, whatever the family background may be, it is now up to that generation to ensure that their children are raised in such a way that they are able to say that we are Muslims, we are proud Muslims, and they are also able to sit on this first Shahzah just as we are sitting, imbibing the spirit of Imam Hussain alayhi salam. Salawat. It's not that I do not understand the issue of Muslim youth in North America. Today, the youths will tell us, and I talk to many of them around the world, and particularly in North America, that they are torn between maintaining an equilibrium of identities. It's tough. It's tough. Their nationality, their faith, and the culture of their parents' origins. There are 3 identities that they are struggling with. And what we need to do is nurture a generation that can have a future that is going to be meaningful for them. And this is where community elders, the young people, have to come together, discuss visions, and say, where is it that we should be going? What is your experience, my elders, as to when you were in that position? And we ask them, our young friends, what is your experience as you deal with your peers? There has to be conversations that take place. I am not in favor of having separate youth societies. I think this is the biggest mistake that the Muslim community makes. This is a wonderful thing where people sit, of all ages sit together, of all ethnicities that sit together. They listen to lectures, they listen to poetry, they listen to the morning assemblies in different languages. We come together as one community. If now we have a youth group and a youth majlis and a separate place for the youth, you know what we are doing? We are actually widening the generation gap. A community that prays together, stays together. Some centers have made this mistake, where they have separate ideas, separate organizations for the youth. This does not augur well for the consensus for building a community which is a cohesive community that loves the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. In Karbala, we had shuhada of every age. It was not determined to say so and so is youth that they will not go. Every age and every person was represented. The idea of us coming together as a community. And what do? The idea is to help them reconnect. I will not go through all this, but really to reconnect through the surrender to His will, with Iman, with the idea of justice, with the idea of Tawheed, and the idea of Taqwa, and to actually avoid within the dining table in the homes talk of fiqh gymnastics, negative aspersions, and teach our young people In the home, the concept of husn zan, thinking positively, thinking well of the other person, not su'e zan. This is how a community comes together. So, Mu'mineen, and I plead to my elders and my peers to say, let us make space for this fresh vision. Except that they may have a better handle on the road ahead. They walk the walk, they talk the talk. They may know better than I do because they have gone through this, they have gone through the issues. Let us move away as elders from the driver's seat sometimes. And let's not be backseat drivers when we give them responsibilities. You know one reason why we do not have young people coming to volunteer? That they are now being directed. Give them a responsibility. Give them the responsibility to carry out projects. Allow them the luxury of making mistakes. This is how we'll develop a community. Imam Jaffarya Sadiq alayhi salam has said, and I quote, that a person who is fully aware of the time in which he is living will never be overcome with bewilderment of the things around him. Imam is clearly telling us, be aware of the era that you're living in. You're not living in the era of the past. You're living in this era, today's era. Although some poets have a nice way of defeating that particular thought when they say that is दौर तरक्की के अंदाज, इस दौर तरक्की के अंदाज निराले हैं, इस दौर तरक्की के अंदाज निराले हैं, सड़कों पे उजाले हैं, ज़हनों में अंधेरे हैं. That, sometimes this era, and we talked about this yesterday, that the era is truly amazing in more ways than one, that the streets are full of light while there is darkness in the minds. But this is a society that we need to understand. Let me come to our living right here in the United States. The US today houses the most diverse population in the world. You could almost call it a universal nation. There is no other like it, which has all the nationalities on this planet, which are the only other place where you have the diversity that you would see the United States is at the time of Hajj and Umrah in Makkah and Medina. That's where Muslims for all parts of the world go. There is no other place, no Muslim country, no other country which has got the diversity that we are blessed with here in the United States. This is the most ethnically, and we can see it right in front of us here. We are the most ethnically diverse community of Muslims anywhere. So there are 6 million of us, depending who's counting. Some say 2.4 million, some say 8 million. I have a figure of 6 million. That today, Islam is on the verge of becoming the second largest religion in the United States. Muslim community is now finding a place in 21st century America. And Muslims in America are putting down their roots. We are becoming more and more engaged socially, politically, and organizationally. But it is not enough. I believe we need to do more. We need to do more. You know what we need to do? It is vital for all Americans to develop a better understanding of Islam, to facilitate a greater understanding of the richness of the American experience. And we need to engage much more in the political system and this civil society. This is our call. I'll jump on this. You know what we have here? Like I said yesterday, sometimes we see that the society that we live in, because of the diversity, we have wider freeways but narrower viewpoints. We have more information but less knowledge. We have more degrees but less sense sometimes. We have conquered outer space but not inner space. We have cleaned up the air but we have polluted the soul. We have split the atom but not our prejudice. This is a land of fast foods, slow digestion, 2 incomes but more divorces, fancier houses but broken homes, and disposable diapers and throwaway morality. This is the society that we are living in. It is not the best society. It is the most diverse, ethnically diverse society. But this is who we are. Now it is up to us, Mu'mineen, when we have the beautiful teachings of the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, to actually have wider viewpoints, more knowledge, more sense, more inner space, less polluted soul, less prejudice. This is the community that is going to make a difference in the people around us. At the risk, again, of repetition, I'll share an anecdote very quickly to say, a man leaves his 3 sons and goes out for a year, and he leaves with each one of them a small pot of grain. And he said, I'll come back after a year. So the first son, who was very, very pious and very upstanding, says, my father has left an amana with me of a pot of grain, puts it in the safe and leaves it until the father comes back. The second one, who was a jovial person who liked company, he said, my father has left me with this pot of grain, so I'll get some meat and I'll have a nice meal. And he actually gave everybody that rice, cooked the rice, added some meat, and had a party, had a feast. The third one did something different. What did he do? When the father comes back, he said, I left you with a pot of grain. I left you with a pot of grain. What did you do with it? So the first son brings out the pot of grain. It has gotten rotten in the safe for a year because it had no air to breathe, and it completely got rotten. The second one said, Father, you know what I did? I actually called all the family and I fed them with meat, and I added some meat, and we had a great party and everybody was very happy. The third son, he said, what did you do, my son, with the grain? He said, come with me, Father. He takes him at the back, and there is a store of 10 bags of grain that he had grown. He had actually sowed the seeds into the soil and he had reaped the harvest, and now he is offering 10 bags of grain instead of the 1 pot. Why am I sharing this story? I don't want to be a grain merchant all of a sudden. Why I'm sharing this story is, Mu'mineen, let us not be like the first son when we have the teachings of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam that we are going to lock in that cabinet, we're going to put it in that bookshelf and just keep it inside. That knowledge is of no use to anybody. Nor should we be like the second son, where we will have, mashallah, very good gatherings, and we will have our food, and we will do our majlis, and we will do our rituals, and we will go home and we will have achieved very little apart from the spiritual upliftment of saying we all got together and we did this. Mu'mineen, the school of Ahlul Bayt and the teachings of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, the knowledge of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam needs to be spread like grain, like the third son did, so that it grows in every land, in every state, in this diverse, ethnically diverse United States of America. That, Mu'mineen, is our call, and that is what we expect from the Muslim community. Salawat. Let us recite another salawat. In the process, as we share the teachings of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, let us not be so arrogant to say that my truth is better than your truth to anybody. It is not our right to say my truth is better than your truth. You know why? If you say that, even if it is, if you vocalize that, what it does is it creates intolerance in the society. It causes economic justice. It causes political double standards. Think about it, and I will leave this slide with the Mu'mineen. Anybody who wants to use this. Killing human beings on a massive scale, a major threat to peace and security. This is something that has caused most wars. This is something that has caused religious persecution, and this is the result of ideological confrontations. ISIS is the one who says, my truth is better than your truth. The whole idea of takfir, the legacy of Ibn Taymiyyah, of takfir is one that is today ruining the Muslim society. Let us not go into that trap to say my truth is better than your truth. In fact, what we have to do is that we use the word tolerance sometimes with peace, love and justice. But we need to move beyond the concept of tolerance. Because even if you say I tolerate somebody, tolerance is not a nice word. If I say that I tolerate someone, it means it's me and him, it's us and them. The idea is to understand. So this, in order to enhance understanding, mu'mineen, it is imperative that the Muslim society comes together with all schools of thought to fight a common enemy that is the genuine understanding of Ibn Taymiyyah and the Takfiri ideology and the Salafist issues that are brought forward. To us, that is the enemy. All the other Muslims are suffering. And we need to come together as part of an intra-faith community to say that we may have differences within us in terms of theology, but there are many more commonalities. We have common interests with each other, and there has to be more intra-faith dialogue, and we do not need to be negative about each other, especially here in North America when we are facing common challenges. And then we also need to enhance the understanding between the people of different faiths and cultures. The idea of interfaith. As we learn about our own faith and traditions, then we should also learn about the faith and traditions of the others. I heard an imam, a Sunni imam in a mosque in Los Angeles. He said something wonderful. He said, most of our misunderstanding between the Shia and the Sunni would be cleared. He did not say that we have unity. He said misunderstanding that would be cleared if the Sunnis were to read 3 Shia books and if the Shias were to read 3 Sunni books. Read about each other from the books of each other, not just our own books. So that way we are able to enhance that level of understanding of each other. It is going to expand our knowledge. We are not talking about forgetting history. We are not talking about unity in terms of theology. We are talking about unity in diversity, which means to appreciate common values of interdependence, of equality, of justice, of human rights, and of individual dignity. This is what we are looking for. And therefore, mu'mineen, as fellow citizens in an emerging global village, and especially here in North America, we can build a more inclusive community despite the differences in age, in race, in ethnicity, in gender, and national origin. We can do this. In conclusion, mu'mineen, that an engaged Muslim community at ease with its existence in the land that we have chosen as our home is going to allow us to raise the next generation. Mu'mineen, I say this with the greatest of humility. We do not live in Iran or Iraq or United Arab Emirates or Saudi or Malaysia or Pakistan or India or East Africa or for that matter in Ireland, Germany, Japan or China. We live here in the United States of America. We have a duty to this land that gives us our risk. We have a duty to our fellow citizens who need to know about the great teachings of Islam. At the same time, we have a responsibility to the human beings, as Imam Ali al-Islam said, and so eloquently to Malik Ashtar, to say when you go to Misr, you will find 2 kinds of people. You will find your equals in creation, you will find your brethren in faith. Both of them have rights upon you. Treat both of them with equal justice. This is a way that we will be able to live in a pluralistic world. And therefore, I think we need to shed our own baggage to lighten the load for the next generation. And this is the last slide I leave you with, reminding us of the legacy that we will leave. The Blessed Prophet of Islam sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, that by death, the scroll of life gets folded forever. Death means that's it, no more time for deeds. No more time for earning anything. Except, he says, three people. Three groups are exempted. One, he says, a scholar who has left behind a scholarly work as a reminder and guidance for the people. Then he says, a good and a pious offspring who remember their parents during the supplications with goodness, and a person who has left endowments and charities by which people are profited. Mu'mineen, this is indeed the legacy that we need to leave. Salawat. And isn't that the meaning of intizar? This afternoon, we heard a beautiful khutbah in terms of who and when we will be ready for the zuhur of Imam Zamana Ajjalallahu Faraja Ta'ala. And one of the thoughts is that the Imam will come when we are ready for him. The number 313 has been given to say that there should be at least 313 of such followers, the companions, who are going to be there to be totally committed to Imam alayhi salam. This is the idea of intizar. But as we do, mu'mineen, it falls upon us, and we owe it to the legacy of Karbala that we try and create a least unjust society that we possibly can. Mu'mineen, tonight, as we said when I started, that a conversation between a father and a son. We know in the history that there was a father who was commanded by Allah to sacrifice his beloved son. And the son, Hazrat Ismail, willingly accepts to be sacrificed for the pleasure of Allah, but by the grace of Allah, that son is saved. Tonight, it is a continuation of that history, mu'mineen, that we remember, because we were told that the Zibh Azim is going to come later. Tonight we remember that the total obedience to the Allah's command is what Imam Hussain alayhi salam was doing. Over 3,000 years later, on the 10th of Muharram, 61 Hijrah, history witnesses the reenactment in the Battle of Karbala. Then a sacrifice was called for us to protect Islam and its values from being trampled under the yoke of Yazid. Mu'mineen, the very concept of Wahdaniyah was at stake. Prophethood was at stake. Justice was at stake. And there is this other father and son, miles away from Mecca. We see a father and son. And this son says, oh Father, I request for permission to go and fight the enemies of Islam. Imam Hussain says, oh my son Akbar, you have my permission. May Allah be with you. But Akbar, you know that how much your mother and your sisters and your aunts love you. Go say farewell to them. Hadhrat Ali Akbar goes into the tents, mu'mineen. I cannot describe the conversations that took place between the mother, between Bibi Zainab Salamullahi alayha, except that we know that Hazrat Ali Akbar looked very much like the blessed Prophet. And this is what Imam Hussain says in this exact words, and I quote, to say, Ya Allah, be a witness against these people, for now I send against them this son of mine, who bears the most resemblance to your messenger in features, in character, in speech. Ya Allah, he is the one at whom we used to look at whenever we desired to see the messenger. Mu'mineen, this parting was a difficult parting. Imam, he helps his son to mount the horse. And as Hazrat Ali Akbar begins to mount the horse and rides towards the battlefield, what does he hear? He hears some footsteps. He hears some footsteps following him. He looks back, and what does he see? He sees his father walking behind. He sees his father walking behind, as if you have a Haji who is walking behind his sacrifice sacrifice. Mu'mineen, Hadhrat Ali Akbar says, oh Father, we have said goodbye. Why are you walking behind me such? And Imam says something that every father and every mother can feel, every parent can feel. When Imam says, oh my son, had you been a father, you would surely have understood how difficult it is for a father to part from his son. इन्ना लिल्लाहि व इन्ना इलैहि राजिऊन. मोमिनीन, मैं अपनी मंजिल पे आ गए. आइए मोमिनीन, आज हम उस जवान का मातम करते हैं. वो जवान जो सूरत और सीरत, रफ्तार और गुफ्तार में एक पैगंबर से मुशाबह था. नाम था अली, और ये हुसैन की मोहब्बत थी कि अपने बाप से, अपनी माँ से दोनों बेटियों का नाम फातिमा रखा, और 3 बेटे थे, तीनों का नाम अली रखा. अरे तीनों का नाम अली है तो कैसे पहचाने जाए? जो करबला में बचे वो अली इब्ने ज़ैनुल आबिदीन, जो नाम से मशहूर है. करबला में मोमिनीन 2 अली शहीद हुए. एक छोटे अली जो गोद में थे, एक 18 साल के अली. लिहाजा दोनों के नाम समझने के लिए छोटे को अली असगर कहा जाता है और बड़े को अली अकबर. मोमिनीन जरिया अली अकबर बाप से रुखसत चाही तो आपने फजन के चेहरे पे हसरत की निगाह डाली, और इसके बाद इमाम ने फरमाया, बेटे जरा खैमे में जाकर अपनी फूफी और माँ से रुखसत हो लो. शहजादा खैमे में गया. न मालूम मोमिनीन अंदर क्या कोहराम था, मगर इतना जरूर है, हमीद मुस्लिम जो रावी है वो कहता है, वल्लाह मैंने देखा कि अल-हरम से एक रोने का शोर मच गया और खैमे का पर्दा बार बार उठता था और फिर गिर पड़ता था. इससे फकत इतना पता चलता है मोमिनीन कि शहजादों को सब बीवियां घेरे हुई थी, और जब बाहर आने का इरादा करते होंगे तो सब लिपट जाती होगी. ऐ मेरे नाशाद, ऐ मेरे नामुराद, तुझे क्यों कर मरने भेजूं? शायद जनाब सकीना लिपट कर कहती होगी, भैया अगर तुम शहीद हो गए तो बाबा अकेले रह जाएंगे. उस वक्त इमाम अलैहिस्सलाम भी रो रहे थे. जब अली अकबर को देर लगी तो आप खैमे के दरवाजे पे आए और फरमाया, छोड़ दो मेरा आकर या अली अकबर, राह खुदा का तालिब है, राह खुदा का तालिब हो चुका है. ये सुन के सबने दामन छोड़ दिया मोमिनीन, और शहजादा इस तरह निकला जिस तरह एक घर में से जनाजा निकलता है. मजलूम इमाम ने फरमाया, या बुनैया तकद्दम. बस मोमिनीन, मैंने अपने बयान को खत्म किया. वहाँ हजरत अली अकबर निकले, हजरत अली अकबर चले. अरे सबसे रुखसत होके चले, बाप से रुखसत हुए. बाप से जब रुखसत होकर चले, मोमिनीन थोड़ी दूर अकबर चले कि एक मर्तबा उनके कान में आवाज आई जैसे कोई पीछे दौड़ता आ रहा है, और गिर पड़ा. अकबर ने, नौजवान अकबर ने मुड़ के देखा तो गिरने वाला कोई और न था. अरे वो तो अकबर का बूढ़ा बाप हुसैन था, जिसकी कमर अब्बास का गम छोड़ चुकी थी. बाप को ठोकर खाकर गिरते देखा. अरे घोड़ा मुड़ के रुके और हाथ जोड़े, मेरे बाबा, अरे मेरे बाबा, आपको दादी की कसम पलट जाइए. कहा, अच्छा बेटा मैं पलट जाता हूँ, मगर अकबर मैं तुझे कैसे बताऊँ, अरे मैं तुझे कैसे बताऊँ, तुझे अभी अल्लाह ने औलाद नहीं दी कि बाप का दिल औलाद के लिए कितना बेचैन होता है. अरे लाल अकबर, इतना करना, जब तक मेरा सामना रहे तब तक मुड़ मुड़ के मुझे देखते रहना. इन्ना लिल्लाहि व इन्ना इलैहि राजिऊन. मोमिनीन अकबर गए और लड़े, जख्मी हुए. कैसे जख्मी हुए मेरे दोस्तों सुन लो, फिर देखो वो कौन کون انسان ہے جو سینے میں انسان کا دل رکھتے ہوئے نہیں روتا؟ ارے اے لال اکبر، ارے اکبر، جناب اکبر میدان میں گئے، جیانی نبی کی صورت کربلا میں آئی، ارے علی کی ہیبت کربلا میں آئی، ارے حسن کا جگر کربلا میں آیا، حسین کا دل کربلا میں آیا، عباس کی شجاعت کربلا میں آئی۔ ایک ترتبہ تلوار اور نیزہ سنبھال کے اکبر نے آواز دی، اے میں فرزند حسین ہوں، کون ہے جو میرے سامنے آئے؟ مومنین سخت مصائب کا میں نہیں پڑھتا، صرف اتنا اشارتاً ظالموں نے سامنا کیا اور نیزہ مارا۔ اب جو نیزہ پڑا تو زخم پیدا ہوا، مومنین کا ایسا زخم، ایسا گہرا زخم کہ سینوں کی ہڈیوں نے جگہ دے دی۔ نیزے کا پھل آگے بڑھا، جسے کلیجے نے بھر کر چوم لیا۔ ارے میں کہاں سے الفاظ لاؤں، کیا بتاؤں زخم کیسا گہرا تھا۔ قاتل نے جب نیزہ نکالنا چاہا، مومنین سن سکو گے تو نیزہ ٹوٹ گیا، ارے پھل نہیں نکلا۔ جب کلیجے میں نیزے کا پھل رہ گیا، ارے خون کا فوارہ ابلا گھوڑے سے گرتے ہوئے۔ ارے اکبر نے آواز دی، بابا، ارے بابا آخری سلام۔ حسین کے کان میں اکبر کی آواز پہنچی، ہاں میری بہنوں اور بھائیوں سنو اور حق کے مادم ادا کرو۔ اکبر کی آواز سن کر حسین چلے۔ ارے بوڑھا باپ کیسے چلتا ہے سن سکو گے، ارے راستہ نظر نہیں آتا۔ جب گرتے تھے تو پکارتے تھے یا علی یا علی، علی اکبر کو پکارتے تھے یا نجف کو علی کو پکارتے تھے اٹھانے کے لیے، اور کربلا کے علی اکبر کو پکارتے تھے کہ بیٹا کدھر ہو؟ اکبر آواز دیتا تھا، بابا ادھر ہوں۔ حسین اکبر کی آواز سنتے سنتے اکبر کے پاس پہنچے۔ ارے باپ نے کیا کیا، منظر دیکھا، پہلے زمین دیکھی، نوجوان نے ایڑیاں رگڑی تھی، باپ کی نظر آگے بڑھی تو اکبر کے کرتے کا وہ دامن دیکھا جو سینے کے خون سے لال تھا، نظر آگے بڑھی، سینہ دیکھا، سینے میں زخم دیکھا، ارے زخمی کلیجہ دیکھا، نیزے کا پھل دیکھا۔ ارے بوڑھا باپ زمین کربلا پہ بیٹھ گئے۔ کہا بیٹا کیا حال ہے؟ کہا باپا کلیجے میں نیزہ بڑی تکلیف دے رہا ہے۔ مومنین آخری جملے، ارے دنیا کا عظیم ترین انسان کربلا کے میدان میں سب سے بڑا امتحان دینے کے لیے بیٹھا۔ ارے کیسا امتحان کہ ابراہیم نے دیکھا تو جنت چھوڑ کر آئے، حسین جب اکبر کے سینے کے پاس دو زانو ہو کر بیٹھے، ارے جنت خالی ہو گئی۔ سارے انبیاء کا مجمع کربلا کے میدان میں سمٹ آیا۔ روزہ چھوڑ کے رسول آئے، لہد کے نکل سے ماں آئی، نجف سے علی آئے، بقی سے حسن آئے، ارے ملائکہ جمع ہوئے، عالم میں سناٹا، زمین کربلا کانپ رہی ہے، اور اللہ کا بندہ حسین ایک بڑا امتحان دینے کے لیے بیٹھا ہے۔ آگے کیا بتاؤں، میرا تصور یہ ہے کہ چاروں طرف ملائکہ، ان کے بیچ میں انبیاء، حسین کے پاس رسول و علی و فاطمہ و حسن، اکبر کے زخمی سینے کے پاس حسین۔ ماں نے کہا دل سنبھال لے، میرے دودھ کی تاثیر دکھا دے۔ اے حسن نے آواز دی، بھائی گھبرانا نہیں۔ نورے نے کہا کہ میری زبان کا اثر دکھا دے۔ باپ نے کہا حسین میرا جگر بتا دے۔ بس ایک مرتبہ حسین نے آستین الٹی، اکبر کے زخم میں ہاتھ ڈالا، نیزے کا پھل پکڑا اور کہا یا علی۔ اب جو نیزے کا پھل نکلا تو کلیجہ نکل آیا، خون ابلنے لگا، اکبر سے حسین لپٹ گئے۔ ارے بیٹا، ارے بیٹا، اکبر کہہ رہے تھے بابا خدا حافظ، دادا جام کوثر لے کے آ رہے ہیں۔ لعنت اللہ علی قوم الظالمین، انا للہ و انا الیہ راجعون۔ ماتم حسین۔